All right, here we go.
All right. Carry on. I think everything's turned on.
All righty, folks. Thanks for joining us here. I'm going to get you up on the screen so I can get everybody's comments here, see what's going on. There's a whole pile of garbage around here today. It's like, I don't know. Felt discombobulated. I don't know why the slid show. And I apologize if it came through in the show. I just felt I felt off this week. Part of it was we didn't have a single caller during the program, which was a little odd. But we had a late football game last night, so that's probably part of it. But we'll give everyone a couple seconds here to join us and get into the Aftershock. I'll get it up on the screen here so I can see comments, and we should be good to go. So this is the Aftershock. For those of you who have never watched it before, yes, we do talk about technology, but we also talk about other things. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, to be honest. Part of running a company is trying to keep your head on the swivel to see kind of what's coming next, what the landscape is going to look like, what parts are going to look like, economics, rates, things like that. So you kind of have to be aware of these things. You can't just exist in a bubble and say, oh, I'm going to go to work in the morning and get it done. Otherwise, life ends up blindsiding you, right? And we are living through some unbelievable times right now. I think people are going to write the history books for what we're going through, and we're going to find out that we were going through a transformative time, to use an administration line. We're in a transformational stage right now. Also called a fourth turning. Fourth turning is there's a book highly recommended about the four different turnings of how American society has cycled since the revolution. Now, some people poo-poo it and say it's just a bunch of garbage. Other people say, wow, that makes a lot of sense. But basically, a fourth turning is a time of, it's described as a time of decreased, decreased belief in authority organizations. So basically, you have, a loss of confidence in a lot of the institutional authority that carried you through previous generations and previous turnings. Think like the FBI, the CIA, the U.S. government, things like that. The IRS, You also have a marked, all the innovation with the current technology base is done, and there's the development of a new disruptive technology base that's going to come on the scene to blow everything up. And think like, invention of the automobile or invention of the Industrial Revolution, things like that. There's going to be a transformation, technological transformation, that's going to introduce disruptive technology to the industry. Also, unfortunately, fourth turnings are marked by wars, because when you have this much disruption going on at one time, it upsets the apple cart and you get some wars. So, World War II was a fourth turning, for example. So it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting read anyway to look into, and it gives you a little insight into, if you believe in that kind of thing, what might be going on or what might be coming our way as a society. Good morning, Ron. Quick question. I have an Acer running Windows 11. How do I tell which update I'm running? Great question. So on your computer, if you right-click on your Start button, you can left-click on System. So right-click on the Start button, left-click on System. Once you've left-click on System, it'll bring up the About information page for your computer. On that page, it'll tell you what version of Windows 11 you're running. Either it's going to be 2.1H2 or 2.2H2. Those are the only two versions available. So you'll be running one of the two. All righty. Good to have you, Roger and Karen. Richard's back. Another Roger here. Thanks for the audio check, Winston. I appreciate it. Randy's back. Hey, Aaron, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Alrighty. That's funny. Aaron said hayas, like haya, 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 haya. And Facebook offered me a translation. And it says the translation is Filipino for jewels. So haya is Filipino for jewels. I had no idea you spoke Filipino, Aaron. All right. Bill, coffee at Tim Hortons on my last day in Nova Scotia. How are things in Omaha? Quiet this morning. Huskers actually won a game yesterday, so I think everybody was like, they knocked me over with a feather kind of thing. And, yeah. So everybody's kind of sleeping in after over exuberance. I don't know what's going on, but we had a light turnout for the radio show, and things in the service centers yesterday. Definitely after 6:30, I didn't get a single phone call. And anytime I made a phone call, I heard the game in the background. It was one of those I'm so sorry to call her during the game. Oh, let's see. Carolyn's here. Good to be here. Thank you, Carolyn. Ronald, scary prices. I went to Walmart yesterday. A 1 pound great value butter, $4.58. Yeah, it's the thing that really frustrates and saddens me is that when you hear news stories about how inflation is going down or inflation is going to get back to 2%, right? That's the goal. We want to get it back to 2%. I want you to understand, they're not saying that prices are ever going to go back to what they were before. They're not. They're permanently changed. These are the new prices. They're never going to go back. They never deflate. We always want inflation. And if we can't get inflation, we will increasingly stimulate the economy until we get inflation. And then when we do it, it's going to explode like this. And then we're like, oh, no. Then we have to tighten everything down to slow it down again. But to get back to 2% inflation doesn't mean we're going to drop 6% or 8% to get back to 2. No, we're gonna only increase from here going forward at 2%. So what you'll have next year are stories of, wow, look at how the Federal Reserve tackled inflation. They got it back down to 2%. Aren't they amazing? Well, all the prices went up 10%, and then now they're only going up 2%. So I guess it doesn't feel as bad anymore. But then, of course, the argument is everyone's salaries are going to go up, and this is the devaluation of the dollar. This is how you lose. I heard a great statistic on the radio this week. If you had $1 sitting in a safe when Biden was elected president, that $1 is now worth 88.7 cents. That's how much purchasing power we have lost in the last 2 years. It is phenomenal. And I'm not sitting here saying that it's Joe Biden's fault. I think it kind of transcends. It goes back to it goes way back, but it goes back to the COVID, to the pandemic lockdowns. You cannot print an entire year of GDP and expect it not to have an impact, which is exactly what we did. I mean, everybody got paid; they didn't go to work. Companies got money; they weren't productive. People bought all the things up, so we bought all the things up. And then, of course, there was the hangover from that, where suddenly everyone's got money, but there's nothing left to buy because no one's productive. No one's making anything. Uh-oh. Well, then we start making things really fast, and then it gets clogged in the ports. Uh-oh. Then, trains, and the train workers are going to strike. Uh-oh. And then there's a war in Ukraine, and energy prices go through the roof. Uh-oh. And it's uh-oh after uh-oh after uh-oh. And some of these are things like energy policy. That's a federal policy that's wackadoo, that is causing the price of energy to be higher than it needs to be. But the cost of transporting energy, of getting the gasoline to the gas station, is going to be higher. The cost of doing business is going to be higher for these companies. So while I think what we're seeing right now is definitely exacerbated by the current administration's policies, I don't think it was necessarily caused by their policies in whole. I asked myself, if Donald Trump would have been president instead of Joe Biden, would he have not wanted to have rescue packages and things? Like, would he have not signed those? Would he have not sent another check to Americans if he had the opportunity to do it? Very popular. I kind of think he would have. And now everyone's looking back saying, well, we overstimulated. It's all Joe Biden's fault, the Democrats. And it's like, yeah, kind of. It's the biggest stroke of fortune in all time that Donald Trump lost that election, because now he'll be able to take everything bad that happened from COVID and blame it on Joe Biden, and then move back in and then recover it and be able to come back from it with a policy change potentially, or his whoever comes in after Joe Biden, because it can't be Joe Biden again. This stuff, I don't know I'm sure you guys have heard it or seen it, but you saw him looking for a person who was dead. Like, literally, I'm like, where's the I see dead people memes? because there was a congressman that he was looking for at an event, and he was trying to call her out to thank her for her support. She's a Republican. He was trying to illustrate how we can work across the aisle, except she was dead, and she'd been dead since August. And Joe Biden wrote her family a letter about how busted up he was about her death. He made a statement. He said words out loud about her death, but he forgot she was dead. Not just forgot, but like was looking for her in the crowd and was lamenting the fact that she wasn't there. I thought she'd be here today. I mean, even Democrats are starting to say out loud. And the press secretary, all you have to do is you say, President got confused and he misspoke. I mean, literally, you say that, the whole thing is diffused, right? No, the press secretary came out and was like, no, the president was obviously saying that he was wishing she would have been there because they were working so closely together. No, he was not saying that. That's not true. That is simply not true. And it brings me back. Everything that I see and I read and I hear, I have got this refrain in my brain that what is true and what is real matters and will matter again. So what is true? Everyone's freaking out about 4% interest rates. What is true? Capital has a cost, and it's higher than 4%. It will be higher than 4% again. That is what is real. Gold is valuable. Gold should be appreciating along with inflation, but for some reason it's not. Eventually, gold will appreciate because that is real. You know, there are life lessons. Save your money, right? Here we're told to save our money. And we put it into 401ks because you can't get any money in a savings account anymore. In fact, I went and looked at my favorite bank to find out, my favorite local bank, to find out what are the interest rates, the savings account, money market, all this other stuff. What can I get for my money? I can get 0.5%. I thought rates went up like 400% here. Why am I only getting 0.5% on a savings account? That doesn't make any sense to me. Well, it's because the banks can deposit the money at the Federal Reserve and get a return, and so there's no need to have savers. There's no need. There's no desire. In fact, it makes the capital requirements for your bank higher if you have people saving with you. So banks don't want savers. It's not a profitable enterprise. So you can't save your money. You can't go put your money in a savings account. So you want to go to a bank and you want to get a return. You can't do that. So you put your money in the stock market. Well, then the Federal Reserve comes along, and people are starting to say, who the hell do these guys think they are, that they can just toy with us like this? Like their whole mandate was supposedly to have a smooth economy with smooth employment and level prices. What has been smooth or level about the last 20 years or 30 years of American economy? Since the 70s, what has been smooth and level about this? Nothing. It's boom and bust, balloon inflate, balloon deflate. And what happened in the UK this week, and again, it's a disproportionate amount of attention being paid to the fourth largest economy in the world, right? The UK. Who cares about the UK economy? Let me explain to you what happened in the UK this week and why it is hugely important and has direct consequences, almost like a fortune teller for what's going to happen in the US economy. So in England, their bonds are called gilts because way back in the day, the paper bonds, they were gilded around the edges. So it's a gilt. So their bonds are called gilts. And their pension funds invest in bonds, which have a low rate of return, but they're pretty stable, right? Well, there's a different derivative that you could invest in to juice the return on these bonds. Basically, if the interest rate stays low, you make more money. If the interest rate goes up, you end up paying money. It's like you're betting that the interest rates are going to stay low. Well, these pension funds bet that the interest rates were going to stay low. Then as the interest rates started climbing, if the interest rate crossed the 4% threshold in the market, not the official bank rate, not the rate that the Bank of England was giving, but the market rate for bonds, if that crossed a certain threshold, these pension funds were going to be wiped out. because they were so, like Lehman style, they were so over-levered, it wasn't funny. Because these pension funds, they have to have a return. So you have pensioners. I have family members who are on state pensions in different states. They get their check every month. They get a ridiculous check every month for doing nothing. And they're going to get it for the rest of their lives, right? Well, that money has to come from somewhere. It doesn't come directly from taxpayers. Their investment there, they withheld money from my check. I paid for this. And then that money was invested by the state in their infinite wisdom. And in England, they used it to buy these derivatives that to try to juice a return on a safe asset. So they bought a safe asset, and they bought an incredibly risky asset to juice the return on the safe asset. The risky asset got blown up, causing them to have to sell the safe asset to cover the expense of the derivative blowing up. Which, you sell more bonds. What does that do? Well, there's more bonds available, so you have to pay a higher interest rate to get people to buy the bonds. Causes the rates in the market to go up, which causes more derivatives to explode, which causes you to sell more bonds, which creates a doom loop. And eventually, pension funds blow up, and those monthly checks from the state just don't come anymore because there is no money. And it's a direct bailout then. So the Bank of England had a terrible choice to make. If the Bank of England steps in and soaks up all these available bonds in the market that are being offered for sale, they can get all this money and buy all these bonds, and the interest rate will come down, and it will save the pension funds. But by buying the bonds, they're injecting money into the marketplace, which is by definition inflationary. And why are they raising rates in the first place? To fight inflation. So now they're pumping money into the market while they raise rates, trying to fight inflation without crushing the bond market. In the meantime, their energy supplies are completely cut off because of the Nord Stream pipelines. I mean, it is astronaut. Something's breaking. It's breaking. And so the same things are going to happen in America. People in America who get pensions, they just assume those pensions are going to be there. They assume that they paid into the system, so the money, some super accountant somewhere has their money sitting safely off to the side. That's not the case. It's invested in the market. That's what terrifies me about Florida. You've had in the Florida marketplace for insurance, you've had all the major insurers leave Florida. They won't insure Florida anymore, which left one small-time player to insure, who was kind of the backup player, to insure all the state of Florida, and their rates are literally 400% higher than rates in any other state. Like, they're just horking people. But now they're on the hook for the entire tab for this. Now, how do insurance companies make money? A lot of people think they make money off of premiums. They don't. They take the money they get from the premiums and they invest the money in the market, and then they make a return on that money. So what do you think their bookwork looks like right now? They're very well capitalized, I'm sure. So was Lehman. Very well capitalized on the books. Assets, liabilities. Assets are liabilities. We've leveraged against our assets, which is a liability, and it gets complicated. And then all of a sudden you realize when it all smoke and mirrors clears, there's nothing there. Is that going to happen in Florida? Are we going to see like the largest insurer in the state of Florida go belly up? How are we going to handle that? I mean, the fallout from what's happening in the market right now from the Federal Reserve intentionally destroying wealth. And this is what you hear, that the Federal Reserve is fighting inflation. Everybody likes that. Everybody doesn't want to pay higher prices. Do you know how they're fighting inflation? So inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. Okay? Too much demand, too little supply. Why is there too much demand? Because we printed just a ton of money and shot all this money out there. And now everybody's spending the money. Duh, of course they are. So they're buying things, services, products, vacations, whatever. And it's causing the price of everything to go up because there's only so much to go around. And when there's only so much to go around and there's so much demand, we can raise our price and make more money. And then one person raises their price, and then the next person has to raise their price because the good that person A produces is the input for the good that person B produces. Like if the cost of computer components go up to us because the cost of commodities went up to the manufacturers, and then the cost of mining the commodities went up. So it goes back down the food chain. So you have this energy inflation in the beginning where everything is created with energy, and then it just flows through, and it takes time. Just like that Nord Stream, it takes to get through the pipeline. And now we're in the middle of like, oh, wow, this is bad. And so the Federal Reserve is slamming on the brakes. But the way that they're doing it is they're trying to destroy demand. That's the only thing the Federal Reserve can do. The Federal Reserve can't create things. They can't make companies more productive. The Federal Reserve, the only thing they can do is reduce the money supply and try to crush demand. How do you crush demand? Well, you take people's money away. If people don't have money, they can't buy things. That reduces demand. So the Federal Reserve's stated purpose right now, you don't have to believe me, you can listen to their own words, Jerome Powell's own words. Housing prices are too high and need to come down. Equity prices are too high and need to come down. Crypto, too high, needs to come down. All these different asset classes are too high. They all need to come down. There needs to be no safe place to go to move your money to, because if there is a safe place, everyone will move their money there and it'll create another bubble and the prices will go up. And that's the opposite of what the Fed wants. So the Fed needs to jimmy jack everything at the same time to push it down. And they want to cause unemployment. They want to cause people to lose their jobs, because when they lose their jobs, they will have less money, which means less demand. That's the whole point is demand. We're going to crush demand. Now, on the other hand, the Federal Reserve did something similar under Paul Volcker in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and they raised the interest rates like hugely, but it was also paired with a government federal policy that was pro-growth. So it was removing restrictions, removing barriers for businesses, making things easier to do. So you had an encouraging tax cuts. You had an encouraging federal government trying to stimulate the productivity of businesses. Let's increase, this is why they call it supply side economics. Let's increase the supply of things, because you want to bring down inflation. It's too much money chasing too few goods. The only thing the Federal Reserve can do is reduce the amount of money. What the federal government through policy can do is encourage businesses to produce more goods. Then you have too much money chasing too many goods, and everything stabilizes. Well, right now we have a federal policy of increasing taxes, hiring more IRS agents, impeding energy at every turn that you can, and spending more money, while the Federal Reserve is attempting to pull money out. So they're working against each other. In effect, they're canceling each other out, but causing a lot of misery in the process. I would be really, really nervous. I was telling my wife, I'm so glad that I'm not like 60 years old right now, and like looking at I was going to retire in like 4 years, and boy, I should have retired last year and cashed out and put it all into gold bars in my safe or something. This is crazy. I'm 45, I'll be 46 in November, so I got some time here yet. And looking at the way the previous cycles, after the 2008 crash, which really started in 2007, so a lot of people think this is like we're in 2008-ville right now. Actually, I think we're in 2007-ville right now. 2008 will come next year. Yeah, that'll be fun. And then, boom, everything pops. It took 12 years for housing prices to start to go up again. So, hey, I'll be 46 then, so 12 years later, I'll be 58. Hey, so the market will be starting to go up right as I get close to retirement, if the boom-bust bubble cycle the Fed creates is about the same. And you shouldn't plan that way. That shouldn't be how the system works, but it is. So what's going to happen to all these people who have become used to not being productive? I have to tell you guys, we're hiring at Schrock. I've got 4 new people starting next week and a half. Over the next 10 days, I have 4 new people starting. We lost 2 this last 2 weeks. We lost 2 people, and we have 4 new ones starting. For every 4 we start, 2 of them don't make it. So literally, the challenges that we have are the people coming in, and then I try not to be the old man here, right? I'm a Gen X guy. So yesterday, for example, we had nobody available to work in the Omaha Service Center. Literally nobody. Everybody else was maxed out on hours. We were literally short. We didn't have anybody. So I ran Omaha by myself all day, open to close yesterday. I came in an hour early so I could get started and get everything moving because I knew once 10 o'clock hit and the phone started, I wouldn't be able to touch a lot of stuff. So I wanted to get everything doing something, progressing on something, so that when I was helping customers in the back, the computers were marching toward completion still. And then, of course, I worked right up until the buzzer because, anything that I leave on the bench is for the next guy's problem, and I don't want to leave problems for the next guy. So, because he didn't leave me any problems, so I'm not going to leave him any problems, And so, 8 o'clock comes, I lock the door, and I'm doing my thing. I'm out the door by 8:30. So it was, like an 11 and a half hour shift by myself. Now, luckily, I had a lot of good customers to keep me company, but that's Gen X, right? It's got to get done, so it's going to get done. But the people, some of the people that we interview, it's not about the pay rate. It's not about it's about the experience of working somewhere. And I understand, we all want to feel good about where we work, and we all want to enjoy our job. And I did. As much as I grumbled about having to work that whole shift by myself yesterday in the busiest service center in the company, I had a blast talking to all those customers and dealing with that and solving problems for people. And it was fun. I mean, maybe I have a screwed up sense of fun, but it was fun. Those people are hard to find. Well, a lot of the people that we get are whiny, or they don't want to work, or they don't want to show up, or when they do show up, they were high or drunk the day before or that morning, because now you can vape marijuana. You can't even smell it on people anymore. The world is very different now than it was when my work ethic was formed. And so I was very much a third turning, right? So in the third turning, that's when you have the maturing of these new technologies. They're penetrating the marketplace, and they're changing. They're changing things for the better. So like when I was a kid, Simon Says came out. It was the first electronic toy that had a processor in it, and it changed everything. My wife and I, a year ago or so, there was an exhibit at the Durham Museum on Jim Henson, which we went and saw it because it's the Muppets or whatever. It was one of those things where I was like, oh, I'll go with you, honey. She likes the Muppets, so I'll go with whatever. But actually, when we got in there, the stuff that Jim Henson was doing with animatronics in the 1970s and remote control puppets before there was a transistor, that's third turning stuff. That's taking new tech and saying, how can I apply? That's taking Sophos, something designed to be run for companies, and saying, how can I take this amazing product and make it available for consumers? That's third turning stuff, right? That's what I grew up with. That's what I do. That's how I think. If you don't show up, you can't succeed. If you're not there, you're not gonna get any progress if you don't show up for work. But somewhere along the line, especially during the pandemic, everybody realized they could just stay home and get paid, or that it was somebody else's problem, or that healthcare was a right, or that all these things, and none of it's real. None of it is real. And eventually, what is real will become apparent again. Now, here's the challenge. There's a saying that says that, don't fight the Fed, or the Fed can stay stubborn longer than you can stay solvent, so don't fight the Fed. Society can stay irrelevant longer than your sanity will prevail. So, we do nice things, and, we do try to recognize the fact that the people coming into our company are not the same as me. We're not all monolithic. We're all different people. We all have different backgrounds, different desires, different things that drive us. But we do have to have that same common thread that we're here to work. And nothing makes me more grumpy when I walk in and somebody who's worked a full shift the day before didn't get their basic tasks done that they were supposed to do on that shift. But then I get, emails and things about things that are not assigned tasks that they spend all kinds of time on. And it's like, okay, now we got to reorient you. And some of this is training, and some of it is personal, professional development and growth and things like that. But boy, can I shake and bake some Gen Xers into here, please? Because I could really use some help on these 12-hour shifts, you know? That's kind of where I'm at right now. So on the 5th, we got Dawson starting over in the Omaha Service Center. So it'll be nice to have him in there, and we can he'll be working Saturdays for sure with me. But yeah. So anyway, I've rambled on long enough here. Let me make sure I'm not. I have been completely ignoring you guys. I'm sorry. Let me go back and check real quick here what I've missed. Okay, scrolling. Aaron caught COVID again? Oh no. Heidi's here. Steve is here. Eileen just flew back from Halifax, so the tour was canceled after they landed at the airport. Oh, that would be so frustrating. Ray, hey Thor, how deep is the queue at Papillion? Dropped off laptop and haven't heard anything back from your team? Right now the queue is not terrible. In fact, my information might be a little bit dated because I was in there Saturday. I stopped in Papillion Saturday morning to get stuff. See, before I even started my shift in Omaha, I stopped into Papillion to pick up the parts I would need that I anticipated I would sell that day in Omaha, so that I wouldn't have to transfer them later and I could get your computers finished faster. And I used up everything I brought too. It was like crazy. So anyway, when I went in there, their bench was full, but they did not have a queue. Which is a good sign that things were moving along and about to drop. So right now we're running at 24 to 48 hours typically. If it's been longer than that, Ray, I apologize, but I'll make sure that the Papillion Service Center gives you a call with an update. 1 dozen eggs was $5.95 at the local Ken's Food Fair yesterday. $6 for... Man. All right. Canada, the Great American Park. That's funny. Oh, gotcha. Big thanks to Papillion technician Frank on Monday and whoever was working on Tuesday morning for helping get my sister-in-law's laptop updated to 22H2 last week. Downloaded the update, ran the installation program. The laptop got one point, didn't finish the installation. On Tuesday, I called the technician and they determined that there was something that it wasn't happening correctly. Let's see. He said, let the install proceed, and it stopped and found the file that was causing the problem, located it, deleted it, installation proceeded. Yep, the corrupt file on the stupid pre-install that you have to do for I can't think of the name of it now, the PC health check. So when you run the PC health check, it may have a corrupted file that's it says you're compatible, but there's a file that says you're not compatible, but you can't see that file. So you have to go find this mystery file and delete it, and then magically your Windows 11 installation will proceed. This solution engineered and brought to you by the Schrock Innovations Computer Company, where we do Microsoft's job for them when engineering solutions that aren't available anywhere else on the internet to get your Windows installations to work for you. Let's see. Government program to offer legal representation for illegal immigrants to fight the government and the court system. Yeah, it's just... Oh, this is the first... You just now got COVID, Aaron? This is the first time? I had the Delta variant. That one took me down for a couple days. I didn't get vaccinated or anything like that. I was sick for... I mean, there was one solid day where I was just on the couch. Like... and then another day of okay, the Gen Xer in me was trying to start the engine even though the COVID was in there. I'm the guy that got his appendix out and 2 days later was climbing inventory shelves. And they're like, don't do anything that uses abdominal muscles or anything. I did a laparoscopic, so I'm fine, right? And I'm like, there's something other. I think it's up here. Let me go up a couple more shelves. Oh, here it is. I got the box right here. I'm not supposed to hold this. So I'm just going to drop it. Catch. Oh yeah. So that's me. So yeah, I'm trying to get out of bed on day 2 COVID and go to work, at least go to work in front of my computer because there's stuff that needs to get done. And yeah, so I had Delta. Thankfully I didn't get the full blown, the OG COVID, because that really messed some people up. All right, let me refresh, make sure I've got all the most recent comments here. Got a lot of Canadian travelers on the show today. All right, so what else do we got? Trying to think of Crypto update. The Bitcoin is holding actually at 19,000, between 19 and 20,000. Hasn't moved significantly in the last couple weeks, which is a lot considering how much risk assets have fallen in the last couple weeks. There is some rumblings in the crypto community that in the event of a market crash, crypto could actually have, because the paper hands have already sold, like the market hands that were going to sell Bitcoin to raise money to cover shorts, all that's been sold already. So what we're seeing is potentially a decreasing, what's the word I'm looking for? An association. That's not association, is not the right word. Correlation. A decreasing correlation between Bitcoin price and risk asset price, because the people with risk assets have sold all their Bitcoin. And so now they just got risky stocks, and those are losing value. They can't sell any Bitcoin to raise money, so they're just going to sell their risky stocks. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin price is holding relatively stable in a falling environment now, which is really interesting to see, because the halvening is coming in 2024, 2025. That's where miners will get 50% less revenue from their mining activity. And typically, 6 months before that happens, the price of Bitcoin ramps. Then it falls off after the halvening, and then it explodes higher again. That's usually when we get a bull run. And that was the first one was like 20,000, and the last one was like 69,000. So this could be the $100,000 bull run, depending on what happens, especially if the Fed flips and starts loosening again. And risk assets go up. That will have, again, there's a reduced correlation, but there's still some correlation there. So interesting stuff to keep an eye on. Bitcoin, Ethereum, unintended consequences, right? If you need a new graphics card for your computer, well, a new to you graphics card, and you don't mind one that's been mined on, graphics cards coming out of China are incredibly cheap right now. In fact, you can go on to Alibaba or even eBay and purchase graphics cards for hundreds of dollars less than you could have just a few months ago. The reason is because Ethereum has completed their change to proof of stake instead of proof of work, and graphics cards were being used to primarily mine Ethereum. You don't mine Ethereum anymore with a graphics card. There's not really a lot of profitable coins to mine with graphics cards, so it's time to sell your graphics cards and get your money back that you can from the graphics cards. So fun times there. Just a little tidbit for you if you're looking for a graphics card for your computer. All right, last call for questions and comments before we wrap it up, guys. I'm going to go head home and spend some time with the kiddos today. They didn't see Dad very much yesterday, so they were very attention starved. So I spent a little time with them today. In the service centers, core upgrades. If you have Schrock modular computers, I know a lot of you do, and you're not running Windows 11, at this point it's primarily because your hardware is not compatible. Take advantage of the core upgrade. I'm starting to step up ordering of processors in anticipation of a second run on this. There are a lot of Schrock computers out there that are still not running Windows 11. We see them in the service centers. During the maintenance checkup, I would say every third computer that came in was a Schrock computer, and the majority of those were running Windows 10. So if we can get you onto Windows 11, you get the most recent update, the 22H2 update. That's included with that, so you don't have to mess with the safe upgrade or anything. It's really a nice setup. So definitely make sure you take a look at the core upgrade. If you're looking for a new computer, as I mentioned, computers are up to $100 off right now. So in an inflationary world, we're doing our best to give you opportunities to upgrade your technology and prepare yourself for what's coming. Because right now, maybe you can afford $675 to upgrade the core of your computer. You know, a year from now, or 2 years from now, when you have to do it because you didn't do it earlier, who knows what the world's going to look like. A lot of people look at what's happening in the world now and they want to compare it to the 1970s. The inflationary environment that culminated at the end of the 1970s started in the late 1960s, guys. This could be a decade-long problem. Prepare accordingly. Make sure that you've got your house in order. Make sure that you've got your technology in order. Make sure that you've taken your agency, that you're protecting what you can protect, keeping it safe so that it's not getting infected and attacked. And if you do have an older Schrock computer and you're totally happy with it and you have no intention of doing a core upgrade, definitely get in for a maintenance checkup so we can test that solid-state hard drive speed and make sure that your hard drive is working the way it is, especially if you're under warranty, so that we can replace it for you for free. All right, guys, wrapping it up. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you being here. We'll see you all again next Sunday for another edition of Compute This. Have a great weekend.